Hi everybody, and welcome to part 3 of the Evergreen Gardens Park playthrough. So now in the last episode we added in quite a few new rides, including the big arrow looper that you see here, the 2 launched free falls, the chairlift right at the end, a car ride or 2, and also a bobsleigh coaster, a go-karts, a wild mouse coaster, and a few gentle rides as well back on the big lake. On the other side of the park. So yeah, quite busy. Did a lot of building, but also surpassed the guest goal of 1,000 as well, and that's just down to building so many new rides, I think. And we're well past the soft guest cap at this point. So yeah, we've got quite a bit of money. Well, I shouldn't say a whole lot of money, but we've got enough to continue building at this stage, and doing a bit of park maintenance to start off with in this episode, just particularly around the arrow looper before we had quite a shortage of handymen and mechanics around, so I needed to add in quite a few staff members as well to that area there, and then we got on with the opening up the chairlift. Basically getting this hill all kind of prepped up and connected to the main pathing network. So that took a little bit of time, but wasn't too difficult in the end. Just had to make sure that didn't open up any pathing connections that I didn't want to at this stage, just to make sure guests wouldn't get lost. Then once that was done, got the chairlift all connected up, and then it was time to start expanding on the other side of the park to the arrow looper by adding in the haunted house to start with. And this is an area where I basically always build a haunted house. I feel like every time I've played Evergreen Gardens, I've put a haunted house in this area, I think it's mainly because those big kind of almost dark cyan colored trees, and those white fences with the black railing, they just I don't know, they always feel like they fit into a haunted theme well. So added that in again, and just added a few little terrain textures and a couple other trees which I thought fit the area pretty nicely. Then added in a motion simulator just next to it, and just added in some of those kind of curated trees just to go alongside the others. I wanted to kind of continue that theme and make it a bit more symmetrical overall. I went back to the area around the arrow looper and added in a few more shops and stalls just because the area was kind of lacking. Speaking of shops and stalls, it's there's basically not very much of variety going on. There's only the burgers, ice creams, and the drinks. I eventually do get the research going so I can give the park a bit more variety in terms of shops and stalls, because I think it's needed. And then I went in and added another steel mini coaster, which makes 3 for the park now, just because I wanted this area was looking fine, but maybe a little quiet, and we've got quite a high density of coasters going on just generally, so I don't know, I felt like this area was missing something, so I really just wanted to add in a coaster or a car ride, and we did already have 3 car rides in the park already, well, actually 4, because there's 2 kind of racing car rides. I use the term racing quite loosely because they're extremely slow, but there's 4 car rides in the park as it is, so I went for another coaster here, and I did go for a family style coaster, but it ended up having quite a high intensity rating, probably a little bit higher than what I wanted. I think it was approaching 6 if I recall correctly, but that's okay. It kind of looks gentle enough, and kind of got the job done. It's just a single train, but given that we're we've got a pay for entry. Well, I'm going for a pay for entry strategy here, so the throughput's not too much of a concern. And it was a nice and cheap ride overall. I think it only cost a couple grand to make. So yeah, I think the Steel Mini Coaster adds about 60-65 gas to the soft gas cap. So yeah, it did its job in that respect. And yeah, I was pretty happy with how it turned out. Just weaves in and over the, well, not in the river, but kind of over the river a couple times. And yeah, I think it looks pretty nice overall. Then I went to the very back of the park where you've got that little area of cherry blossoms, and yeah, added in a miniature railway. At first I was just going to make a really small railway that kind of just skirted the perimeter of this cherry blossom area, but I wanted to kind of make use of the river, and I always think a railway looks nice crossing the river, so yeah, added in a couple crossings there just next to the path. I do have to play around with the path, especially at this junction here near the bow tie inversion of the coaster. But it's okay. I didn't have to do too much terrain manipulation in the end, and yeah, I was reasonably happy with how it all turned out in the end. Added in quite a few new fences. I did kind of modify the boundary of that cherry blossom area quite a bit, so it wasn't as nice and rectangular as it was originally, I guess. And I did have to delete a few of the trees, but I added quite a few extra cherry blossoms in around the place. So yeah, I felt like that kind of made up for it. So yeah, it's just yeah, the railway just kind of crosses the river a couple times, and the long-term goal is that it will interact with probably a wooden coaster that I will hopefully be building in the future in this area. I might have to make some modifications to the railroad depending on how that goes, but yeah, that's kind of the long-term goal. And I think it would have just been too short a railroad if I just had it going around only the perimeter of the cherry blossoms. So yeah, I think it makes it a bit more reasonable in length. I then add in, again for the purposes mainly of soft gas gap purposes, but yeah, add in a shuttle loop using the looping coaster. And yeah, instead of doing like the powered launch shuttle loop like that classic design, I wanted to go maybe for a bit more of a realistic layout and go for a reverse inclining mode instead. I think it's yeah, I don't know, I feel a little less guilty going that way because the coaster ends up being a little bit more expensive. I also kind of gave it a bit more of an extended feel with like 6 or 7 flat pieces before the loop, and I also used extra shallow pieces and flat pieces on the inclines as well, just to kind of draw the length out. And I think the proportions of the coaster just look a little bit better like that overall. So yeah, then I went back over towards the Arrow looping coaster and added in a top spin, which I unlocked kind of towards the end of the last part of the build, I think. And yeah, just added one of those next to the river here. I add in a little bit of a water feature just kind of at the front, which I always think looks nice with these rides. I did have to kind of move a few trees, particularly that row of tall trees at the boundary next to the water to fit it in, but yeah, I think it turned out nicely enough overall. And then added in a little bit of a plaza out the front of the launched freefall as well, and yeah, just a few flower beds, and tried to give it a nice curated feel there. Then I went back to decorating the cherry blossom area and the shuttle loop coaster. Just I wanted to give it a bit more of a tropical theme because yeah, the name I went for the shuttle loop was Green Tree Python, and that was kind of based on a suggestion I got from an idea for the looping coaster that the big looping coaster that I first built in episode 1. And the user, I believe, was Leander T101. I might have that mistaken, but yeah, the name suggestion I got was Python. But I thought, yeah, I looked up a kind of, well, I went for a kind of a twist on that and called it Green Tree Python, and colored it kind of like that actual snake in real life. So yeah, I think that turned out all right. And yeah, like I said, that was kind of the tropical feel I was going for. I think those snakes are kind of found in more tropical climate. So yeah, that's kind of what I was going for there. And then it was time to get going with another big coaster. And this is kind of why I went for 2 smaller coasters and a whole bunch of other flat rides just in the lead up to this, is because I really wanted to get that soft gas cap up as high as I could to generate as much park entrance ticket income as I could. And yeah, so this was kind of the main reason behind that, is I wanted enough money to build out a large coaster here just at the edge of the lake. Went for a stand-up coaster. It's got 2 loops, which I guess isn't too unique here because there's already 3 coasters with vertical loops, but I guess it's a different type, being the stand-up coaster. I went for a kind of Togo-inspired layout here. I've watched a few Togo stand-up point of view videos, so I tried to take a few pointers from them, namely the kind of flat piece at the top of the lift hill, and then the kind of slowish curved descent into the loops. In fact, I'm not sure if I recall that on any of the videos I watched, but I thought it looked kind of neat, just with like going into 2 loops right at the lakeside next to the path. But the airtime hills, especially those kind of weird ones with the overbanking on the straight section just parallel to the station, that was definitely, I forget the name of the coaster I saw that on, but that's kind of what I wanted there. Just a few weird airtime hills. And then unfortunately you don't get helixes with the stand-up coaster in RCT1, so I couldn't use any of them, but I did use lots of swooping drops and climbs around the place. Just kind of, tried to give it as much of a nice flow as I could. It's not the most exciting layout that I've come up with, but I think it got the job done. Ended up being a pretty expensive coaster to build, so yeah, glad that I got the park entrance ticket income. Yeah, I'm glad I basically built those smaller coasters beforehand, because I really did need all that money. Speaking of smaller coasters, I then go into building a few more, or a couple more here in 2 steeplechases. Now I had this idea for a while, and I did consider canning it for a moment, just because like I'd kind of boxed myself in, particularly with the haunted house just on the boundary there, and I was kind of worried that I'd kind of given myself too little room to work with. But I played around a lot with layout ideas off camera before I actually did the recording here. So yeah, I really wanted one with 2 lift hills, just to kind of capture the Blackpool Pleasure Beach sort of vibe in a way. Obviously couldn't fit 3 racing steeplechases here, but two I think gets the idea across. So yeah, they're very, very small. Like, honestly, I probably didn't even need to go for 2 lift hills. I reckon 1 larger lift hill would have been sufficient, but like I said, I wanted to capture the multiple lift hills and the Blackpool Pleasure Beach feel. So yeah, it was a pretty basic layout. Unfortunately, you don't get the diagonal elements in RCT1 for the steeplechase, but just that in fact the fact that they're smaller coasters is probably a good thing in that regard, because you would run out of elements pretty quickly. I used the S-bend a few times, but I think any longer and the ride would have been a little bit boring. I found it kind of painful actually, just building them, not because they were difficult layout wise, but the fact that I had to delete so many trees manually by right-clicking to get the layout in. Of course, with RCT2 and RCT Classic, you don't have to worry about deleting trees. Like, once you just throw a layout down and build pieces, the trees delete automatically. I really forget how much of a quality of life improvement that was when RCT2 was introduced. And I definitely missed it here because there was, there's a lot of trees in this forest area, and it really took quite a bit of time to get rid of all of them. But yeah, no matter, it all got done in the end, and yeah, I was pretty happy with how these Steeplechase coasters fit in. Gave them, there was quite a few bright coaster colors before this, so I wanted to go for one yellow and like maybe a blue or a red, but I settled on like kind of the dark red or maroon, and I think it stands out enough, but not so much that it kind of dominates the landscape. And there's already that big bright red stand-up coaster pretty much just right next to it as well. So I think all in all, pretty happy with how it turned out. Also built 2 swinging inverted ships, like I tend to do a lot of when I build that ride. I think they just look really cool next to each other. And then the next big expensive project was completing this monorail, and I was going to build just like one more station, but the area just at the hillside here next to the pirate ship, I felt like that was kind of a good spot for another station. I was just going to have one next to the shuttle loop coaster, but I think another station was warranted. It doesn't give like a perfectly even split between the 4 stations, which I was kind of hoping for originally, but I think it's close enough. There's definitely this section here between the shuttle loop and the hillside was quite a short section, but I guess it really doesn't matter in the end. I don't think it impacts ratings too much, and I was just really glad to get this monorail all completed. I was a little worried how expensive it would be, just because like it's obviously a pretty big map, and it's quite like I wanted to keep the elevation quite high throughout the map as well, and I did spend quite a lot of money on it, but I think it worked out pretty well. Just add in a few little pockets of vegetation just to get rid of the empty gaps around the place, just so I don't have to come back later and do them. Just get them all done at once. Getting the pathing, like the queue and exit paths for these last couple stations were kind of painful, but I had to do a little bit of terrain manipulation around the place, but it's all good. I think it all worked out quite nicely in the end. You see, before I added in some pathing just under some of the supports of the monorail, just because the support density just looked a little too much, especially with that part next to the large garden, the gardens area. So yeah, just deliberately cut away a few supports there. And so I guess the last little part of the build here, I add in a suspended swinging coaster, which might come as a little bit of a surprise. But yeah, I kind of wanted to challenge myself and build sort of a family-friendly and very compact suspended swinging coaster, which is quite difficult to do. Inverter coasters just generally are hard to make compact, I think, because of the clearance requirements, needing the 3 height units of clearance, generally, and so compact designs are pretty tricky. And I also gave myself a very small footprint to work with. You do have the tight 2x2 turns, but and I do use them a little bit, and I get away with it here because like the chain hill's so shallow, I guess. Well, it's not a very high lift hill, so the speed isn't too much. You can easily with the heavy trains, you can feel like you can get pretty excessive lateral g-forces quite easily. But this one was inspired by Silver Streak at Canada's Wonderland. So kind of went for a color scheme based on that, and that's basically what I was going for. It turned out alright. Like with the ratings, I'm definitely getting a stat penalty of some sort, but that was kind of the point. I really wanted a medium intensity family coaster there, so yeah, that worked out quite well. Then add in just a few extra paths just to complete the circuit, I guess, here just next to the lake. Do a little bit of decorating, but yeah, I've since this part here is quite a long one, so I'm gonna leave the last part of the build for another video. But yeah, I think that's just about all we've got time for. Thank you all very much for watching. If you may have noticed already, but I did slow the time lapse down a little bit based on some feedback that I received the last episode. Thank you very much to everyone that responded, by the way. Yeah, got a bit of a mixed response in terms of like, yeah, some people said it was a little too fast. Some people said it was the perfect speed. So I thought I'd just tone it down a little bit. I went from basically 8 times speed to 7, and yeah, so hopefully that kind of bridges the gap, and that can work for the majority of people. Yeah, that's just about it. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you hopefully in the next video. Thank you very much, and cheers. Bye.